Hi guys, this is our second video. Today I read Madol Doova. It is teenage novel written by Martin Wickramasinghe. He is great author of Sri Lanka, and this novel translated by Halpe. Do you like listen that wonderful novel? Please join us. Chapter 1. Robbers. Mother dead when I was about 7 years old at least. That is what I have heard father and my stepmother say. I can still remember how father and my aunt, the other relatives, wept at the funeral. I cried because everyone else was doing so. When my aunt carried me out into the garden, the woman stroked my head and kissed me and said, "Anne, the poor motherless thing." One day, sometime later, father brought my stepmother and a crowd of relatives to the house in a fleet of house carriages. I remember very clearly how father climbed down from the carriage with my stepmother and came up to the veranda. She kept her eyes on the ground, and father walked so close to her that their bodies almost touched. It was much later that I learned from the gossiping of the woman that father married a second time about a year after mother dead. I soon realized that my stepmother was not like mother. She didn't care for me in the same way, even though she was much more loving and attentive to father than my mother had been. The woman sometimes told me that she was a misser, but I didn't understand what they meant until I was little older. She was very careful with the housekeeping money that father gave her. She scolded the servant all the time and even quarreled with them. "You are wasting the sugar," she shouted. If the tea was too sweet, she always went to the kitchen after every meal to give out the servant food herself. If the rice and curry wasn't enough, they had to ask her for a second helping. She managed to save some of the housekeeping money and went into pawnbroking with it. She charged 5 cents a month on a rupee and interest of 60%. Father was very pleased when he heard about this, for he worked very hard at his shop. He gave her 100 rupees to help her with her business. About a year later, my stepmother had a son. When my brother was about 3 years old and I was about 11, I began to feel a difference in her treatment of us. She wasn't unkind to me, even though she didn't love me as mother had done. But I saw how much she loved her own son, and it made me jealous and unhappy. That's really why I returned against her. She too began to change about the same time. I am not sure whether it was because my brother was growing older or because I had already began to treat her differently. I don't think it was her fault. But I began to get into trouble more and more often. Perhaps it would have been different if mother had lived. Perhaps it was also because I had more of my father in me. He never listened to anyone. I didn't like studying and going to school. I wanted to be out all the time, playing with my friends, wrestling or fighting with them, or going swimming in the sea or in the river. I even fought with boys who were much bigger than I. Sometimes I returned home with a bruised face or bleeding arm. Sometimes the mother of a boy whom I had hurt, came home to complain about me to father. This made father very angry and he gave me a beating. My stepmother began to complain about me to father more and more often. I don't know whether she liked seeing me beaten, but I wasn't a boy who could be kept down by beating. When my stepmother made a special sweet or a delicacy, she always put father's share aside first before giving me any. I usually took my share to the kitchen to give the servants a bit too. On days when father didn't come home at noon, I ate in the kitchen, sitting on a wrinkly old chair. I did this because I felt so sorry about the way the servants were constantly scolded by my stepmother. The boy who worked for us was actually a poor relation, the son of a distant aunt of father's. She was about 3 years older than I. His name was Jinnah, but I usually called him Jinne or Jinnah. He did hardly any work about the house, for he was always joining in my games or playing truant. I would find him waiting for me by the roadside when I came out of school. Halfway between our house and the school was a deserted umbalama. It stood on a piece of land surrounded by a low wall. We used to steal the young coconuts from the 4 trees that grow there. Jinnah climbed the trees and threw down the nuts, and I divided them among the boys. As soon as I got back from school, I would throw my books and slate on the table or on my bed and rush away to play with my friends. Jinnah followed me. This was what he waited for all day. My stepmother scolded him and even beat him, but she didn't keep him back. We usually went to a sandy stretch near a small wood not far from the village. To the right of the wood was a spring well to which people from the village came all morning to bath. In the evening, the poor woman and the servants from the rich families came for water. They stayed a while, laughing and gossiping, before they went back to the village in groups with their pots on their hips. Young men from the village often came there in the evenings to look at the girls and to get a chance for talking them or chatting with them. The thickets gave us shelter. The leaves grew so thickly overhead that we only had to run in under the trees when it rained to be completely sheltered. One thicket was as good as a tent, even in the heaviest downpour, and this was our special hiding place. On Sundays and Saturdays, we played, ran, and wrestled on the sand all day. When the scorching sun was too much for us, our thicket sheltered us better than any hut we could have built for ourselves. We had made a platform of sticks on which two could lie at a time. One day we were all trying to think of something new to play. "I've had enough of Katti," said Jinnah. "We played every day." "And I'm sick of wrestling," said Siripala. "Right. Then let's be robbers today," I said. The others clapped their hands at this. How do we become robbers? Asked Ranadeva. Just wait a bit, will you? I told them what we could do. I'm going to be the chief. They applauded. Everyone must do as I say. Or it'll be the worse for you. The chief is horribly cruel, right? No one is to break the rules. You'll be sorry if you do. Do you hear? No one is to tell anybody our names, whatever happens. Do you know how traitors will be punished? We'll kill you, right? That frightened them, and they looked cautiously at each other, all except Jinnah. That's too much. Let's leave our killing, said Siripala. No, that's no way for gang of robbers to talk. You know what they did in the old days? Traitors were hacked in two and the pieces strung up on a tree. That settled Siripala. All right, Jinnah will be the housebreaker today. The housebreaker must only wear a black lion cloth. Do you hear? In the old days, a housebreaker used to oil himself all over, make himself slippery, see? If people in the house walk up and try to catch him, he could just slip out of their grasp. And we must all tie black cloth over our eyes. What's that for? How could we see anything then? Asked Dangadasa. You make two big holes for your eyes. One robber breaks into the house. The chief and all others keep watch. If anyone comes, we tie him up. If he tries to fight, I'll cut him down with my sword. I pulled out my sword and sliced off the top of a kidaram bush with one blow. The others look at me in awe. My sword was only a hoop from a barrel, which I had beaten flat and fitted up with a wooden handle. As soon as you get into the house, you break open the almaria. See? Get the jewelry and the money and clear out fast, I ordered. If anybody wakes up before we get away and comes after us, we knock him down. But don't hurt the children, whatever happens. You have heard of Ali Baba and the 40 thieves, haven't you? Yes. Well, we will disguise ourselves like the 40 thieves and go to Baboon Mudalali's house. Well, get in by asking for shelter and then rob him. But that'll have to wait. We must get some batteries before we try a thing like that. I pulled off the black handkerchief I used as a belt and cut holes in it for a mask. I did the same with a piece of Jinnah's sarong. The others didn't want to tear their sarongs. Mother will beat me, said Dangadasa. So what? Afraid? That won't do. Robbers mustn't be scared of anybody. But they ran back to their homes to fetch strips of black cloth. Siripala, wait. Bring some coconut oil with you, about a quarter bottle. Coconut oil what for? To rub on Jinnah's body. Siripala was soon back with the oil and a piece of black cloth torn from his grandfather's old umbrella. Dangadasa had found a tattered red handkerchief and a ragged piece of a brown sarong. Jinnah tore off a strip of this for his lion cloth. I rubbed the coconut oil all over his body and tied his piece of black cloth tightly over his eyes. Can you see all right? Yes, I can see. My eyes aren't covered. The others too tied on their masks. Oh, where are the housebreaking tools? I asked. They looked about vaguely. Dangadasa scratched his head thoughtfully. There's a small crowbar at home, he said. That's fine, fetch it, quick. Bring an old cat too, if you can. Dangadasa returned with the tools. I tied on my black handkerchief and flourished my sword. We set off. Wait a minute, I said. Siripala, you are the scout today. Go on ahead and see if there's anyone at the watchman's house. Be quick now. The watchman's house was about a quarter of a mile away, on the other side of the wood. Only an old woman and 2 children, reported Siripala. Fine. That's just the thing for our first job. We can't take on a house where there are grown-up men yet. Well, do that next time. Let's go. There was no windows in the back wall of the watchman's house. I ordered Jinnah to make a hole in the wall. The 3 others and I kept watch from different places around the house. Idiot! Why are you digging into the foundation? I asked. You'll end up under the floor. Make a hole just above the ground. My lord, the wall is made of metal and mud. If I go higher, we'll have to cut through bamboo and eramadu. I signaled to Dangadasa. Run to the carpenters. Steal a saw from the shed. No one must see you. It's easy, said Siripala. Upali is deaf. He can't hear at all unless you shout in his ear. He must be resting on his bed in the veranda now, and the shed is behind the house. You'll get in easily. Dangadasa didn't take long. Jinnah knocked away chunks of mud and then began to cut through the strips of bamboo with the saw. The old woman heard the rasping noise and went round to the back of the house. At first, our masks scared her. But then she saw what Jinnah was doing. Upali, she shouted and ran at him. Stop, I yelled. Jump between them and pointing my sword at her. She stopped dead. She looked terrified. We are robbers. But the sight of Jinnah sawing away at the battles was too much for her. Mala Ilauwa, you will bring down the house. They have been given too much to eat. That's what. Stop it. She picked up a stick and went for Jinnah. I dropped my sword and grabbed her by the waist. The other 3 ran to us, tripped her and held her down. She tried to scream for help. I got my sword and held it over her. Don't you open your mouth if you value your life. We are robbers. I fetched a creeper and tied her hands up tightly. Sons of she-devils, shameless bastards. They eat so much they can't keep quiet. Let me go, you filthy dogs. They must have eaten the holy offerings. Hey you, watch out or else we are robbers, said Dangadasa trying to imitate me. You rascals, I don't care what you are. Let me go, she screamed again. The two children crept out of the house and peeped around the wall. Then they saw our masked faces. They screamed and ran away. Men and women rushed out of the houses nearby. Jinnah, stop. People are coming. Jinnah got up the saw and the crowbar still in his hands. Run, all of you. When they had got away, I looked back. Some of the women saw me and came after me. I ran into a thicket. They untied the old woman. I could still hear her scolding us angrily. When I got safely into the wood, I squatted down quietly for a bit. Then I pulled my whistle from my belt and blew it. The others came creeping up to where I was. They'll come after us. No running away. Now we'll fight. If one man comes after us, we just tie him up. If it's two, we knock down one and tie up the other. See? Then we get away. Jinnah immediately stood guard, holding out his crowbar threateningly. Dangadasa waved his katha in the air. The others grabbed two big sticks. Then we crept through the wood to our usual hiding place and sat on the platform, keeping a good look out for pursuers. If you like this novel, you can join next chapter with our next video. Please subscribe, comment, like and share. Thank you and see you while next video.